Hello and welcome back to part 2 of your first management accounting application lecture. This is the part that will focus on multiple product break-even, and again it is narrated by Dr. Martin Roberts. So again, like I said, we're going to concentrate on break-even, and as I've mentioned in the very simplistic basic break-even set of slides that I've created for you, is that again this is a technique that is used very, very strongly commercially, and you will see and talk about it, albeit not in an explicit way, but it is that technique is being used. It is that idea of fixed costs divided by margin will give you a turnover target to achieve. So let's move on and try and explain that a little bit more for those of you who haven't seen the basic break-even slideshow that I've done. So what happens is we have sales less our cost of sales will give you contribution. You generate enough contribution to cover your fixed costs, and you should make a profit. Now, to work that out, to work out what you would need to achieve either break even or a target profit, is you would divide your total fixed costs not by an individual unit contribution like you've done at level 4, which is incredibly simplistic. What you do now is you look at the overall average margin that the company's creating. So you take your contribution as a percentage of sales, known as the contribution to sales ratio, and that becomes a percentage, and you divide your fixed costs plus a target profit by that margin percentage, and that will give you a turnover target. And that's multiple break even. It's not difficult, but let's just take you through it more step-by-step basis. Okay, again, we've done this. Variable costs vary with output, and fixed costs don't change. Okay, so they're your overheads. Okay, and again, like I said, is we generate enough contribution to cover our fixed costs, and there's that idea of break even. So the slow way around of doing it is if you have if your company sells one unit, and this is what you do at level 4, then you just divide the total fixed costs via your contribution per unit, and then you multiply it by a selling price to get your turnover target. And with target profit, it's exactly the same. Okay, and so there you go, is that you generate enough contribution to cover your fixed costs plus your target profit, and therefore you'd know your sales target. Okay, so the lecture exercise I've got is enclosure limited, but and that's a Word document that's in with the lecture slides. You should see it and have access to it, and I will in the final part help you through it. But just before you turn into that, let's just again try and make sure that you fully understand this idea of margin, because all you have to do is get that average contribution and then you're flying. Okay, so let's go down to the bottom. If a company made 100,000 total contribution on £1 million sales, what would the margin be? Well, the margin is incredibly straightforward. It's 10%. So what does that mean? What that means is, again, let's use an example of a bottle of water, is that if we sold it for £1, it would cost 90p to make, and we make 10 pence on every bottle that we sell. Okay, and that's all we're saying. We're saying that expressed as a percentage is a 10% margin. It's not difficult. and you shouldn't cloud your judgment and make it so. This is the nice thing about management accounting, is that it seems more complicated, but it isn't. Okay, with a little bit of thought and a little bit of build on what you've been doing, hopefully in your first year, and if you look at my basic videos within this website, then you should be able to progress quite easily. Okay, so there you go, is that once you know the margin, is you take your fixed costs of, say, imaginary 2 million, you divide it by a 10% margin, and we would need in the region of £20 million worth of sales to break even, to cover a million, to cover those fixed costs of 2 million. We would need 20 million in sales to cover £2 million worth of fixed costs if we run at a 10% margin. If we increase our margin, then that sales target will decrease. And that's a bit of a clue for the next question. Enclosure, go and have a look at it in the Word document, and then please come and join me in the third and final part of this lecture for the answer.